Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hype, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion. Your host, hi, and welcome back to the Baseball Hype. Hopefully you like this video. Hit that subscribe button. I'm going to sort of put it out there and lay the cards down on the table. I think you should expect, and I expect this to happen now, that Pete Alonso will not be back with the Mets. Just based on this report that came out on Saturday from Pat Rangazzo, that the Mets are going to move on from Pete because they don't want to have to, they want to change the culture of the club. They're also looking to move Jeff McNeil, which I've been pushing for. They need to do more than float him out of here. They need to catapult him out of here. Float him out of here. I was reading that article. Wow, they're going to float his name out there. Catapult him. Send him out of here. But yes, the big thing is the Mets now recognize that they have major problems in that clubhouse. And it's like I said, during the season, it's not like these guys are bad guys. It hasn't worked. And sometimes you have to move on. You have to move on from players that are good guys, but they're not winning players. As a group, that they just can't get it done. Now I read this article earlier, and believe it or not, and I think that's probably the best thing the Mets are going to have to do. I know it's a lot of home runs they're losing, it's a lot of RBIs, but this team has been sort of spinning its wheels going back as far as 2019, and in terms of where they need to be. If you remember, at the end of 2019, we all expected going into 2020 that they were going to be a good team. Now, as you know, 2020, the year 2020 was a complete, total disaster for the whole world. A lot of sort of man-made, all of it man-made, a disaster. But the point being is that team 2020 had expectations when the season ended because they finished up well. And then, as you know, 2021, they started out pretty good, although offensively they struggled. And then they lost Lindor, and they lost DeGrom, and they completely fell apart in the second half. They played terrible in August that year, if you remember. 2022, they played great most of the season. Then the last month, it just sort of, it was like a sense of urgency was gone. 2023, same problem. They hit June. We had the worst June in the history of the Mets. And they basically had to trade all the veteran players. Now, I was going through the numbers of the Mets veteran pitchers, Scherzer and Verlander. The numbers aren't that bad, But the team played so poorly. They didn't have Diaz. That was it. And then, of course, 2024, they got off to a slow start. They had a terrible May. And then they played really well. And then this year, they got off to a very strong start. They were the best team in baseball for the first 2 months. And it was like a slow drain. Just incredible sort of, lack of urgency, lack of the moment. They didn't have one comeback. Not one comeback in the ninth inning. That's unheard of. Bad teams have comebacks. Bad teams, some of the worst teams in history of baseball, have had comebacks late in the season, late in the game. The Mets did not have that at all. They were 0 for whatever the record was, 0-73 when trailing after the eighth inning. Just terrible numbers. You get at least 1 win, 2 wins. Bad teams get 3 or 4 wins during the season. But they come back. Mets didn't have one comeback win all season. Now, they're gonna float. Like I said, they're gonna float McNeil's name out there. Just get him out of here. Don't float anything. Just catapult him out of here. I did a video on Friday essentially saying that Pete's probably going to sign with the Red Sox. I think that's where he's going to go. He doesn't have a qualifying offer on him now. The Red Sox are a team that have a young team. They don't have to give up any prospects. They don't have to give up any draft picks to the Mets if the Mets lose Pete. I think that's probably the place he's going to go. They need a right-handed hitter for the middle of that lineup. They'll give him the money. They have plenty of money to spend. He's a much better player in a lot of ways than Rafael Devers is. He plays every day, 162-game guy. He's a great kid, but it just didn't work. They had him here 7 years. They didn't want to go to the World Series. They didn't do the things they needed to do. Edwin Diaz. I don't know what's going to happen with him. I think that there's a 50-50 chance he leaves. I think that's pretty accurate. Seems like the experts, so-called experts, are saying the Dodgers, the Yankees, I'm hearing, I could see him going because I don't see Stearns signing him to a massive contract. He's not Billy Epler. Billy would not lose Pete, and he would not lose Diaz. He would sign them to contracts. So I would expect a big change with this team, and they need it. The Mets need to make major changes to this club. That's what was so outrageous last week, or this week, we were hearing about Antoine Richardson. This team was terrible. They played terribly. And not for nothing, the stolen bases the Mets had this year, did any of those games, any of those stealing second, stealing the third lead to any runs? I don't remember there being a lot of runs scored based on those numbers. Okay? You gotta score runs if you're gonna steal bases. I don't know what the percentage is. You really have to dig very deep to find out what are those stolen bases, where do they lead to? Were they empty stolen bases? I would think probably a lot of them were. And to be honest with you, something... So to sort of cry about the fact that they held on to Richardson is ridiculous. Okay, this team need to do major changes. I love the fact that they have an entire coaching staff. The only concern I have now with the manager is now that you've kept him, what is the backup plan in case shit happens? Meaning, if the team gets off to a slow start next year, it's going to be all kinds of calls for him to get fired, and you have to ask yourself, who's going to be the manager? I don't see anybody that really appeals to your host that really would help this club. But be that as it may, the fact that there is a chance Diaz might not be, and he's been here since 2019 too. We can't forget that. He's been up and down his career with the Mets. Up and down, up and down. And you saw the Dodgers. The Dodgers won the World Series. They haven't really had a closer. A quote-unquote closer. Okay? And they're probably going to lose Pete. I'm going to make that prediction. He's going to be gone. Okay, there's a 10% chance he'll be back with the Mets. So that's not very good odds. I always said last offseason that Pete was going to be back. This year, after what I read, the fact that he changed his Instagram picture, the fact that he doesn't look at himself as a Met, I could see him going, and I think he's going to be gone. So we have to mentally prepare ourselves. And a lot of people are going to be screaming and cursing and everything else. And I've always said this for many years. You need Gary Carter. You need Keith Hernandez. They leave. The name on the front is more important than the name on the back. As simple as that, folks. Simple as that. You need Gary Carter. He was probably the most popular Met in history, from what I've seen on Facebook. To be honest with you. And Gary left after being, here for a few years and being great for a couple of years. He left. Pete Alonso's no Gary Carter. He's no Keith Hernandez. So if he goes, he goes. Thank you for helping the Mets win a lot of games with the Mets, a lot of home runs. You're a great Met. You'll get your number retired hopefully one day. But he can't stay. And I think that at this point, Mets have to move on and figure out what they want to do, what kind of team they have to. And I think the Mets will be good next year. So it's not a situation where they're not going to be good. They're going to be good. They'll probably be just as good as they were this past year in terms of record, if not better. And we've sort of talked about this on this channel, is that he's a Wilpon guy. It seems like the issues with the Mets seem to be the Wilpon players. Nimmo, McNeil, Diaz, Alonso. These are guys that have been here. David Peterson. Keep an eye on him. The Mets should think about moving him. If you're going to move him for a big pitcher like Skubal, put him in the deal. It kind of smooths things out a little bit with the fans in Detroit, if you move him. And I think he's going to get moved. I'd be surprised if he didn't, because he's going to really push to want to get a big contract. Are they going to be all in the Tigers? I don't know. But this is what I expect now. This is really now the second full week of free agency. Hopefully things will start to pick up. I believe the general manager meetings are coming up this week. I believe, if I'm not wrong. I could be wrong. Or the following week or whatever. So things are going to really start to pick up, I would think. Hopefully this offseason will be much quicker. Also, I'll let you know the Mets are very interested in Cody Bellinger. And you would think that they would be, because he's versatile. He's a good outfielder. He's a good first baseman. It gives him some versatility. He can play in New York. He had a good year with the Yankees. And people can say, well, the Yankees, Mets taking Yankee players. Well, too bad. On the free agent market, you're going to take him. And if it comes down to money, the Mets will sign him, like they did Juan Soto. They want him bad enough. You know, I'd be honest with you, I'd rather have him than Kyle Tucker. Just seeing what I saw from Bellinger. And Bellinger's a winning player. He makes big plays in the field. I'm very impressed with him, what I saw this year with the Yankees. So, I'd love to thank the Yankees again if they not sign him, our AAA affiliate up there in the Bronx. But be that as it may, we need major changes with the Mets. We're going to get them, and they need them. I use plenty of historical references on this channel. The Blue Jays of the late 80s, early 90s is a very good example of the kind of things the Mets need to do that the Blue Jays did back then, because they had the same kind of issues of culture with the guys that they had on team. And it's not like, it's like a killer instinct. And not just a killer instinct on the field, but sometimes you need that killer instinct outside the lines, inside the clubhouse. And sometimes there is probably something lacking that this team needs. They have to be better at recognizing who can do the job when it gets hot. Who can do the job and who stands up and says, I'm going to carry the team and this, that, and the other. I would mention Juan Soto played great down the stretch. I'm shocked that he's going to have, probably finish third in the MVP voting, just based off the start that he had. But he played great down the stretch. The Mets didn't lose because of him. He's the last person that gave them a problem. So these are the things we're going to have to look forward to and look at. And we'll talk about it here, of course. And just prepare yourself, because Pete's going to be gone. I've been here a long time. The Mets didn't win a World Series with him. He will be the first Met not to get to the World Series that won a Rookie of the Year award. A little trivia when it comes to Pete. So, unfortunately, it's not going to happen. If he comes back, great. But that's just the way it is. So, thank you for watching this video. And, of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut. And I'll see you later.